All right, what are we watching today? Let me pull it up real quick. Okay, so this is called Communicating Management's Point of View from 1965 by the Bureau of National Affairs. Communicating Management's Point of View. I don't quite know what to make of that. This might be like a really boring, like, office video or something, like a how to manage your workers. But based on the thumbnail, this also might be a little bit more interesting than that. So let's just jump in, right? Communicating management's point of view. So what is management's point of view and how do we communicate it? That's what we're learning today. Let's start. All right, B&A Films. I don't know what that stands for. Copyright 1965, B&A Incorporated. All right, everything makes sense, everything checks out. Let's keep going. The Berlo Effective Communication Series. I like that a lot. The Berlo Effective Communication. So we're learning about effective communication. You know, I could learn a thing or two about effective communication, so this should be good for us. But I like the thought that this was a whole series. Dr. David K. Berlo, Chairman, Department of Communication, Michigan State University. Interesting. It's interesting because usually for these programs, they always bring on like an expert and they always come from some university. And I always like checking what university specifically. This time it's Michigan State University. Shout out. Okay, Communicating Management's Point of View. Again, the same title. We're definitely watching the right thing. Again, I'm still so curious. What is management's point of view? What are we learning about here? I keep interrupting, but we should just keep watching. It's really upbeat music, though. It makes me think that we're going to have a little fun with this. I really hope this isn't like the most boring, cut and dry thing we've ever watched, because it could go that way. Based on this title, this is like the most boring title ever. So this could be really lame, but I think there's a very small chance that this could be pretty interesting. Oh! Yeah, all right, pretty interesting. We're going the interesting route, I guess. All we need is a map of Germany looking like this, and we're in an interesting territory. Dang, all right, so not a lot of people are gonna notice this, but I just feel like I'm obligated to share this. So this camera is zooming in on this map animation or whatever, but the title, the words are staying the same size. That's interesting. If you go back, you can see the map is changing size, but the text is staying the same size. And it's just so funny because that's a whole effect in After Effects. Like you can alter the size and scale of stuff. Like I spend so much time thinking about the scale of objects as you zoom in and zoom out of them on a map. Like that is actually my day job. So watching this text stay the same size as we zoom in on the map, it's just clearly those were two separate layers. Like the map and the text are two layers. Like there's the map layer that we're zooming in on, and then there's the film text layer, which was just staying in the same place. I don't actually know how we did that because this must have been on film, but just very funny, very, very small detail that no one would ever notice. But because I work with maps and names on maps every day, that's immediately what stood out to me is that this text isn't moving while the map is. All right, hang on, but some interesting Germany borders real quick. So we have all this Germany, which probably includes Austria and probably a fair amount of Czechoslovakia and Poland. And then we have this little Germany island out here too. This little, I don't even know what it is. That the part that's owned by Russia now? I don't know, but very interesting Germany borders. I think we're gonna have a good watch actually. Oh yeah, we are wasting zero time. What year is this from? 1965? Okay, so this is after all this. Okay, well, we're still wasting no time getting to... I told you there was something about this that made me think we were watching something more serious than just an office. I like how this is the very first thing you see in the effective communication series. Like this is the icon of effective communication, or at least the very first thing that we think of when we think about effective communication. It's just, it's a very strange association that was suggested by what we're watching. Like, was Hitler an effective communicator? I guess that's pretty inarguable that he was, but I just don't know if I really want to be learning effective communication skills from Hitler. I mean, I guess learn from the best, but it just does not seem like we should be learning from Hitler, especially in 1965. Like, this is too soon. Like, this better come with some big caveat. We better not just be studying Hitler's rhetoric. It is crazy seeing Nazi Germany, though. Like, I was not expecting to be seeing that in something titled Communicating Management's Point of View, but here we are taking a big look at Nazi Germany. Just like, look at these crowds. Everyone seems so happy. Everyone seems so for it. It's just, I don't know, it's crazy. There's so many women, too. I don't know why, but the women being in the Nazi rallies is really what, like, shocks me. This is some effective communication we're listening to right now. Dude, they're doing the Michael Bay camera move of where you spin around the actor from below them to make them like look really big and impressive. They're almost trying to do that same camera move here with Mustache Man. Wow, so hang on a second. We just watched all that literal like Nazi parade and like that's it. Like no words were, I guess words were spoken, but no like narration, nothing. Like we just watched the Nazis hanging out. Like I hope they're all gonna bring it around at some point, but it's just no explanation, no reason for why we just watched the Nazis. We just took a look into Nazi Germany for a real quick. I feel like you would never do that nowadays in media. Just like show Nazis for like the first minute and a half of this video has been nothing but like Nazi parades. And now we're leaving Germany. We didn't even have like a conversation about it. We're just leaving them. This is a really funny map, though. Just like the funny dilapidated borders, like they're imperfect in so many ways. Like, look at how big Scotland is compared to England in this. Like, and then the funny little Northern Ireland. I love the rinky-dink old maps.
Their generals told their prime minister and his divided cabinet.
Okay, so we're looking at two different speakers give speeches. We just looked at Hitler, and now we're listening to Winston Churchill, I imagine, give a speech, which not really apples to oranges, considering one's in German and one's in my native language, but let's keep listening. Let's hear out their argument, at least.
In 3 weeks, England will have her neck wrung like a chicken.
That is a pretty shocking thing to say to a crowd.
Some chicken.
Well, I guess the audience was really delighted with what he had to say. I would not be psyched to hear this, though.
Some neck.
Okay, that was pretty funny.
Two men diametric.
Okay, interesting. So we just got two looks at two different speakers, two different very famous national speakers, I guess. And now this guy is going to try to tie it all together. So let's hear him out. Let's see how he does that.
Opposed, attempting to persuade people to opposite points of view.
You know, it's so funny that is the speech from Winston Churchill that they used to illustrate him trying to convince people of like opposite points of view. Because like what was Winston's point of view in that speech? Like I guess it was that England was going to get killed pretty much, which I guess is probably the same sentiment as Hitler's speech. So I don't know. I don't know if those were different speeches or pretty much the same. But that speech that Winston just gave just does not exemplify the difference between the Nazis and England at the time. I don't know.
Both were effective.
Both were effective. See, it's so funny because I can't judge Hitler's words, obviously. I don't speak German, but I don't know if those were the best words to be saying were effective of Winston Churchill's. I mean, I guess he was getting the crowd to laugh and everything, but that speech was just not equivalent to what I imagine Hitler just said.
Even though one had to be right and the other wrong. Both were.
Well, that's kind of unfortunate because if Winston was right, then they just got their neck wrung.
Agents of change, men who were accomplished in changing the beliefs and actions of millions of people. One of their major tools, persuasive communication. All of us are persuaders.
Dude, I gotta hand it to this guy. He's trying to talk with his hands, which is like such the temptation when you're in front of a camera is to talk with your hands, but he's doing it in a subtle way. There are ways to do it where you are just being obnoxious with your hands, and I don't know, he's doing it well. I don't know if that's even worth talking about, but I guess we are talking about communication, so your hand gestures are part of it. Hitler definitely had hand communication too, so.
All of us try to change people's beliefs and attitudes. All of us try to change what people know or do. This man is neither a Churchill nor a Hitler. However, he too is a change agent. He relies on...
Hang on, I feel like I can recognize this guy. Oh, he looks familiar. I don't know, though. He, too, is a change agent. It's a really weird way of comparing Churchill and Hitler together, as they were both change agents, I guess. But that's just, I don't know. That's not the terminology I would have used.
He relies on persuasion as a communication tool. The manager is also a change agent.
The manager, all right, so they're trying to compare like the office manager to a change agent, and the two examples of change agents that we just got were Hitler and Churchill. So very strong metaphor so far.
Joe, on these bills of lading, you don't show the exact time the shipments left the loading dock.
Well, I didn't know you wanted us to write down the exact time.
Look, take this.
I don't know if this is a real look into their office or anything, but this worker seems like a legitimate worker. Like, it seems like this is actually his job. And he does it poorly,
You show
too.
it was sent on the 20th, but was it sent out?
It feels like they would not have had this conversation in this manner if there weren't cameras here. Like, I feel like this boss would have communicated this completely differently if we weren't watching him. But maybe that's the whole point of this program, communicating
out
management's
in the
point of
morning
view.
or afternoon?
I don't know.
That's the problem, Joe. Put yourself in my girl's place. When a customer calls about a shipment, all she has to go by is her copy of your bill of lading. From that, she has to tell the customer the estimated time of arrival. On short hauls, it's no problem.
I see.
See, so I get what they're doing. So obviously this manager is taking the time to fully communicate like the reason that this worker needs to, write the times properly or whatever. I just don't know why we needed to be reminded of Hitler to get here. I feel like we could have gone an easier route than that.
But on a long haul, she's in trouble. She could be off as much as a whole day.
Right. Can you help, Joe?
Sure, tell her from now on I'll write down the exact time.
Good. Well, that would take care of...
Doug Oliver could have just told Joe what to do. But by putting...
Yeah, of course, that's how they're going to do it. Yeah. That's so funny how, I don't know, they're saying he could have just told him what to do. But, if you know anything about being a good boss, that's not what you're supposed to do. I guess that's the whole point of this program, though. Let's just keep watching.
Joe in the girl's place, he got Joe to accept the change. And the chance...
I guess that is good management strategy is, you could have upset this employee just by telling them they're wrong and what to do right. But he did. That is good. That is good practice. I'm not critiquing anything that this manager actually did. It's just, what a funny example to give.
Chances are better that Joe will do it right and like it. As managers, we must get
He'll do it right. And, why did that sound like a threat at the end?
people to accept what we want them to believe. Persuasion is central to managerial competence.
Persuasion is central to managerial competence. Interesting. Remember that, everyone. Persuasion is essential for managerial competence.
Therefore, we can profit from analyzing what's involved. At the beginning, we must realize that change is neither good nor bad, it just is.
Change is neither good nor bad, it just is. Okay, we're learning a lot of parables today.
Some of us don't like to think of ourselves as change agents. We prefer to believe that we just give people information. And
You know, that's what I like to think of myself as, a person who just gives people information. I like that a lot. But maybe I am a change agent.
they make up their own minds.
You know, I like what he just said because he's pretty much summarizing my whole, worldview with this channel. It's just presenting you guys with the information and letting you all make up your own minds. That is what I am trying to accomplish. I'm trying to add no information of my own. I am just trying to expose you to this information and let you make your own decisions. That is my goal with this channel, and I just like that he said that.
But that isn't so. We can't avoid trying to persuade because everything we say is partly persuasive. We can change people for better or worse, but we can't avoid changing them. Furthermore, as managers, we shouldn't avoid it. It's our job to communicate management's point of view.
Oh, he just said it. He said the title, Communicating Management's Point of View.
We must accept the fact that changing beliefs is central to our job.
Changing beliefs is central to the job of the manager. This is an interesting thesis, I guess, because it is true, I guess. Like, you do need to be able to control what people believe. This is just an interesting take on a manager. This is just like the puppet master of managers, you know? I don't know if that's how you're supposed to think about it, but I guess that's true.
At the same time, we must get rid of the old notion that it's human nature to resist change. That's nonsense. People don't
I mean, it is kind of.
resist change, and they don't seek it either. Change is unavoidable. The question isn't whether people change, but when and how they change. People change when they see...
This guy is totally reading off of a teleprompter or like cue cards or something. You can just see his eyes going back and forth, and you can tell he's like not very interested in what he's talking about. Is this guy even a manager, do you think? Or is he just an actor, you know? He seems to be speaking as if he is a manager, but I can't imagine he is.
something in it for them, some reward for changing. When they see no reward, they resist, and they should. No change occurs unless the person is out of balance.
I can't tell if these are really good lessons for people or really bad lessons. Like, to think of people in such, like, not extremes, but absolutes is just, I don't know. I don't know if that's what you really need to be teaching managers.
Persuasion involves the reduction of tension. It occurs when people restore balance by doing what you want them to do. As
By doing what you want them to do. You know, it's all like conditional on what you want them to do, I guess. You know, that's the whole point of this, is the manager wants them to do work. And I guess that's just it, you know.
As managers, it's our job to motivate, to create, control, and reduce tension in ways that produce persuasion. We need to be expert
I really feel like Michael Scott watching this, though.
predictors of the people around us. We need to be able to read people, to see the world as they see it, to anticipate what...
You know, I never really thought about how much of a people person you need to be a manager, but you do need to, like, exact control over people in a lot of different ways and for a lot of, like, different reasons. That is interesting.
kind of communication will be effective. That's why the first step in accomplishing change is a thorough analysis of the situation from the point of view of the person we're trying to change.
See, that actually is really good advice. The first step in accomplishing change, a thorough analysis of the situation from the point of view of the person you're trying to change. See, that's the important part, is to actually understand the problem from the perspective of the person encountering the problem. That is really good advice, actually. That's pretty much all you need to know, is just put yourself in their shoes and understand the problem from their perspective, and more often than not, you can come up with a solution for it.
Suppose this man worked for you. If you've
Dude, I love the blank office wall that this guy has. Like, this is my exact idea of a depressing cubicle office, you know? And it's so perfectly exactly that.
analyzed him adequately, you should be able to answer a lot of
Even the little fishing calendar on the wall, as if he, like, hates his job so much that he just thinks about getting outside all day. It's perfect. It's exactly 1965 business aesthetic.
questions about him. What are his beliefs?
Oh, his little book full of, like, phone numbers,
How does he
too.
look at the world? What kinds of things make his world fit? And what throws him out of balance? When is he likely to accept change? And when will he resist? By rejecting, distorting, or avoiding?
It is interesting that they're positioning all of this as about change, which, I don't know, it's accurate, but it's an interesting lens, I guess.
How do you get through to him? Is he the kind of guy who listens carefully to what's said, or is he more interested in who said it? Does he weigh the evidence, or is he more likely...
Oh, there's a little, like, blurry little hair over the film. That's funny. That doesn't have anything to do with anything, but it's impossible not to notice.
to go along with people he likes? Those are just...
Dude, that must have been the hardest acting gig of all time. You just had to sit there and pretend like you were having thoughts.
Those are just a few of the questions a manager should be able to answer if he's going to be effective in accomplishing change. Too often, we introduce change.
Yeah, the focus on accomplishing change is just so interesting because it's so broad. It's such a general goal. I don't know. It's interesting though.
Change without raising those questions. Even if we do analyze the situation, we analyze it from our point of view, not the other man's. For instance, Doug Oliver wants to convince Bill that he should accept the transfer to the field.
Dude, these are such like middle century American men for a second. Just look at them. This hair, oh my gosh. Like this is what men used to look like, you know? Like men don't look like this anymore. And I don't know why. I don't know what happened. I don't know if it's for the better or for the worse, but men don't look like this anymore. That's for sure.
Oliver knows that the transfer will lead to a step up the ladder for Bill, but he didn't analyze the situation from Bill's point of view. As a result, he doesn't anticipate Bill's resistance.
Thing you should do. Moving you.
You know, this is pretty interesting though. Like it's a higher level of thought that they're trying to teach you, which I appreciate. This is like very, very intelligent stuff. Like to understand somebody else's perspective. Obviously, like it makes sense, like duh, like try to understand somebody else's point of view, but like to be teaching like business people to understand people like this, it's very good advice, I'd say so far.
To one of our field offices would actually be a step up the ladder.
I don't know. My wife and I have put our roots down here. It'll be hard pulling them up.
You don't have to.
A1 acting job by this guy though. Good for him.
We're not sending you to Siberia. We're sending you to the field for some additional seasoning. You'll be back.
I hope so.
Bill doesn't sound convinced, does he?
I was about to say, he doesn't sound convinced. That's so funny.
Too often, we try to reward somebody and end up
Oh, there we go. The little fur ball just disappeared. That's so funny too.
punishing them because we didn't analyze the situation from their point of view. Doug Oliver should have reviewed what he knew about Bill before he tried to persuade him. If he had planned his communication, he could have done a lot better.
Bill is
All
definitely
right, let's see what he could have done better.
the man for the opening in the field office. It'll season him, and he'll be in.
Dude, this is so funny just hearing his thoughts. I love old stuff like this. I don't know if this is like entertaining anyone else, but this is what I got into this channel for. It's just the the little things like this.
better shape for a promotion. I wonder how he'll react to the idea. I know he and his wife have that new home. They won't want to give that up. Certainly.
I like how the lesson that this is trying to teach is also like just consider other people's feelings. You know, like it's not that hard once you actually see it happen. Like, oh, like he didn't want that job because he didn't want to have to move. Like all you had to do was really just understand where he was coming from, which I guess is the whole point of this whole program. It's just, it seems like pretty obvious.
They can't afford to lose money on it. Also, Bill's serving as president of the junior chamber this year. Let's see, when is his term up? September. That's just 2 months off. We could hold off that long, and that would let him ease his way out of things around here. That takes care of that. What else?
Why does this guy look so much like, oh, what's his name? Bruce Willis. He looks like Bruce Willis when Bruce Willis had hair.
Come to think of it, he may not know how much importance we put on field experience for our best people. I better remind him that every top manager in the home office has had field experience. Well, that ought to do it. I can take care of the house problem and the chamber job. I think I'm ready to talk. So that's why I asked you to come in.
You know, I do like that. I do like that we got to see the inside of this guy's mind and figure out all the problems from his perspective. I feel like some people needed to be shown them thinking about somebody else. I feel like just like the 1960s businessman like did not think about other people, you know? Like this, the reason we need to watch this program is because the people who got into managerial positions did not consider other people's feelings at all prior to this. I think that's actually why we have to watch this.
Bill, we've had our eye on you for some time. It's clear that you have real management potential, but you've never worked outside the home office. Sit down, Bill.
Again, is this a typical office setting for the 60s? Like just this big lamp? I don't know. This just looks like somebody's like living room almost.
We want you to spend some time in the field, but I wanted to check and see if this is the right time for you. I think it is, but you're important to this decision too, and so is your wife. Incidentally, I know how hard the two of you have worked on that house of yours. I'll bet you've learned a lot about building
Yeah, this is kind of just like how to schmooze people, you know? Like, oh, just think about them. And then they'll like you and agree with you.
a house. Of course, the company wouldn't want you to get hurt by this move. If you lose money on selling the house, we'd pick up the loss. Or you might want to rent it till you come back.
Well, that would help, Doug. We are proud of the house. The job sounds interesting, but I hate to leave. We have real roots here.
The hand acting, my gosh.
We know you do.
We got real roots here.
We know you do. Take your job as president of the JCs. That brought you to the company's attention, Bill. That's quite an honor. And of course, we could put off your transfer till your term ends. September, isn't it?
That's right, Doug. You could wait till then, huh?
Of course. This is important to the company and to you, Bill. The decision to go is really yours. But I'm sure you know that every top man in the company has spent some time in the field. You can't really get the feel of the entire operation until you've spent some time out of the home office. I remember
Oh, so is this a home office? Maybe he is in the living room.
what I learned in the field before I got this job.
That's right. You were transferred out of here for a while, weren't you?
You bet I was, for 2 years.
What are we talking about? What field are they going to, though? I guess this is just like general, generic businessman field sort of talk, but I'm curious. Like, what is the field?
Look, Bill, don't make up your mind today. Go home and talk to Pat. See how she...
Like, I need to understand what this field training is in order to sympathize with this Bill guy, right? Like, what is he so nervous about this field training for? Like, what is it? Like, is it... I don't know. Because I don't know what they're actually talking about, I just don't understand why this guy is so reluctant, I guess. Like, if I understood, like, oh, he doesn't want to, like, go to something and do something. I don't know the context. I don't know why he's reluctant, I guess. And I feel like that has to do with whatever this field work actually is, which I just don't understand. So I don't fully understand this guy's motivations, or lack of motivation, I guess.
she feels about the transfer. Let me know in a couple days.
Okay, Doug. Actually, it sounds more exciting the more I think of it. I'll talk to Pat, but I know she'll go along. You're sure this will be good for my career?
I'm sure.
Bro, he's getting a promotion. Why does he think it wouldn't be good for his career? He's going to get 2 years of training or whatever. He's going to get training in the field. And I don't know. What a dumb question.
Of course, I can't make you any promises, Bill, but I'm confident you have what it takes. And I know...
This guy's so full of shit, too, by the way. Like, he just feels like a grimy freaking Wall Street
I
boss.
know you need this kind of seasoning before you can move up in management. Trust me, Bill. I've never advised you to do something you shouldn't, have I?
No, you haven't, Doug. Okay, I'll talk to my wife.
Look at the world from the other man's point of view. Anticipate the things that will make him resist. Take them into account. Empathize.
It's so weird how the emphasis is always on, like, find the things that will make them resist. You know, like, why aren't we just asking these people to do things that they want to do? I mean, I guess it's trying to tell you to figure out a way to get people to want to do stuff, but it's so funny that, like, all the messaging is just they are not going to want to do what you ask them to do. Like, as a manager, by default, your workers do not want to do the work that you've hired them for. You have to encourage them other ways.
That's the first rule of effective communication. Oliver also understood the second major predictor of successful change, and he built a relationship with Bill that made it work. Bill was impressed with Oliver's arguments.
I also find it funny that we need a third man to present the information of these other two men. You know, like, this is such a complex operation for just a very simple illustration of thinking about other people.
However, the clincher was,
Trust me, Bill. I've never advised you to do something you shouldn't, have I?
No, you haven't, Doug. Okay.
That's the clincher, is just like, you can trust me. I'm your boss. I stand to benefit from you working more for me, so I would never lie to you.
I'll talk to my wife.
Great.
Doug asked Bill to trust him. And Bill obviously
I like how that is like the secret ingredient. Just ask your workers to trust you. Like, so long as your workers trust you, they'll do anything you ask. Like, oh, obvious.
obviously did. In communication theory terms, we have a name for that relationship.
Communication theory terms. All right, what's the communication theory term for asking somebody to trust you? Like, come on, man, just trust me.
We call it credibility.
Credibility. All right, that's not a bad word.
It's one of the most important predictors of effective communication. We are credible to the extent that people, bosses, subordinates, or colleagues, go along with what we say because we said it. A man is credible to the extent that other people say, if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me. Research indicates that there are 3 factors in a man's credibility.
Research indicates, again, such a funny little statement, just a little phrase that I feel like people used to say, like research indicates. I feel like nobody says that anymore.
We make a decision as to how competent he is.
All right, so what are the factors in credibility? Let's find out.
How much he knows, how much experience.
Competence. I mean, yeah, I guess that goes without saying. You could probably swap competence and credibility and have them mean the same exact thing in this instance.
Experience he has, how well trained he is, how much we can trust him to do what's in our best interest.
Dependability. See, to me, dependability and credibility are like almost the same thing. Like, I'm not going to consider how credible somebody is using how dependable they are. Like how dependable somebody is also how credible they are to me, if that makes sense. Like, if I can depend on you, I will also view you as credible. But if I can't depend on you, I just can't imagine somebody depending on somebody and not imagining them to be credible, or vice versa. This is just a funny list of words.
How dependable he is, how sincere and honest, and how much energy he has.
Drive. That's a really funny last one. I actually like that a lot. Their drive. Like, that is what determines someone's credibility, is their drive. Not whether they're right or wrong. Like, none of these say intelligence. I guess competence is a little bit, but like, you can be more credible just by having more drive, Like, I don't think trying harder makes you any more credible, But I guess it does.
Does he have the drive to see things through, to do what he says he will? A great persuader has to have high credibility on all 3 factors. He has to be judged to have competence, dependability, and high drive.
I feel like a lot of politicians could learn from that today. I'm not going to say which ones. I'm just going to leave it open-ended. I feel like a lot of politicians could learn about factors for credibility.
Any of us whose job it is to persuade...
Who is this guy? Do I know who this guy is or not? He almost looks like Eisenhower, but I don't think he is.
...will be more effective if we're more credible, whether we're addressing an audience or trying to convince a subordinate that what we want him to do is in his best interests, or just giving an order to a subordinate so that he will accept it and carry it out.
See, I feel like half of the issues with all of this is that they are still being taught to think of their employees as subordinates. Like, that idea of itself baked into these men's minds is like part of what causes conflicts between managers and employees, is the thought that they are subordinate.
How do we gain credibility? How do we get people to evaluate us as competent, dependable, and dynamic?
Dude, I am trying so hard to to illustrate that to my audience with these videos, and I don't know if I've successfully done it either. Like, do I have the factors of credibility? I don't know if I am perfectly competent. I think I am. I don't know. Maybe not. If the videos come out regularly, then I am definitely dependable. And if they come out, then I definitely have drive. I just don't know if I'm competent.
Let's talk about competence first. Of course, to most people, this means technical competence. The manager knows his job thoroughly, can answer questions, give advice, and so on. This is important, but there is a communication aspect of competence, too.
That is fair. It's not only having the right ideas, but knowing how to put them so that people accept them. That is also a very important skill. Credits to these guys, they do know a little something about managing.
The best way to use communication to establish a reputation for competence is to keep fully informed and pass that information along to your subordinates.
Dude, what is this guy's hairline? I'm sorry, but like, bro, you gotta wear a hat or something.
All too often, we forget that the manager has a responsibility to report down.
So wait, whose office is this? Is this Douglas's office? I guess it is. But like, why are there so many people behind his desk?
To keep abreast of what is going on and to report it to subordinates.
I thought you both might want to know what's going on in production control.
Yeah.
They haven't definitely decided yet, but it looks as if they're going to reorganize to get special orders out more quickly. Now,
They're gonna reorganize to get special orders out more quickly? Yeah, it seems like they should have done that.
from our standpoint, this means that,
Keep them informed.
well, we may have...
And
a few
remember,
changes making some-
they have credibility problems with their subordinates too. Make sure your subordinates learn what they need to pass on to their own staffs.
Just the term subordinate just makes it feel like you think these people are like incapable of anything, you know, like to call them subordinates. I don't know. It's just such a charged term to me. It seems like half the issues with their management strategies. I know I already said that, but like it really does, like when you think of them as subordinate is like that's the issue with your management style. I don't think of my editor as subordinate, you know?
Do this, and they'll see you as competent. How do we establish and maintain a reputation for being dependable and trustworthy?
Yeah, you know what? I could learn about how to establish a reputation for being dependable and trustworthy. Let's learn more about this.
By backing up our men,
Let's back up our men. All right, backing up the men.
keeping our word, and not making promises we can't fulfill. This takes time, because subordinates learn to trust us only by experience. By what
Subordinate almost feels like a word for like slave, you know? Like I don't want to say that or even suggest that, but it just like the way they say it, it feels like they have total power over their subordinates in a weird way. The weird language of this relationship is just, I don't know, it keeps weirding me out.
they see us do, as well as what they hear us say. It's important to keep the self-interest of your staff in mind at all times. If you learn to look at the world through the other fellow's eyes, to see things as he sees them, he'll have more faith in what we tell him. If we don't do this, he will not accept us as dependable, and we're in trouble.
I will tell you about the progress that we're making on automating your operation, Frank. We have the task force report right here, and things look good. We should have the entire loading operation in Plant 3 automated by the first of the year. You won't really have any problem, and your people will all be taken care of.
Well, I'm not so sure of that.
Oh, come on, Frank. There's nothing to worry about. Well, I think there are some other things we could talk
see?
about now.
Hang on, before we go any further, was that an example of like good communicating or bad communicating? Because to me that comes off as like bad communication. He's just saying, nah, it's not a problem, don't worry about it. So maybe that was the example of bad communication, but I don't know. Let's just see, I guess.
There's nothing for Oliver to worry about, but that doesn't mean there's nothing for Frank to worry about.
Yeah, see, okay, I picked up on it. So yeah, that was a bad response because he just did not, because he just, see, that was a bad response because he just completely dismissed this guy's thoughts and his worries, and that's bad. You know, I think I'm learning. I think I'm picking up on this.
Clearly he is worried, and Oliver's ignoring it. What's Frank thinking?
Wow, here it comes. Sure, Oliver says there's nothing to worry about. But what will I tell my people? And what's going to happen to them? And to me...
You know, it is funny because that is the thoughts that this sort of man would be having is like, what does he tell the people that he's in charge of? Again, you know, it is important to put yourself in the perspective of the people that you're working with. It's just, I don't know, I'm enjoying this. It's interesting.
I don't know whether I can...
It's like, I feel like I know all this already, but I've never been taught this, if you know what I mean. Like, none of this is new to me, but I've never considered it either.
trust Oliver to look out for my men on this.
We destroy our credibility when we don't look at problems from the other man's point.
So hang on, was that a competence issue? Was that a dependability issue? Or was that a drive issue? I'm curious about that.
Problems from the other man's point of view. We also destroy his trust in us when we duck managerial responsibility. A manager's in trouble when he looks on himself merely as a relay station in the chain of command.
Do you have any questions?
You know, that's pretty funny because that's actually all I think of managers as, is just relay stations for information. They're not workers, they're not like, you know, hard laborers. They're just the people who like have to tell you stuff. That's my understanding of managers.
Before we break up, Doug, I have a question.
Shoot, Frank.
Well, some of my foremen have been complaining about the decision to make the men stop trading shifts for personal reasons. They've been trading shifts for years now. Why the change?
It wasn't my fault, Frank. The orders came down from upstairs. I just passed them along. Don't blame me, fella. I don't make those orders.
Yeah, very weak argument. Okay, yeah, I get what they're saying. Don't just say that I have no say in it. It just comes from people above you. Because honestly, that makes you look powerless more than anything.
I just work here, too.
He just works here. Who's he kidding? He just doesn't give a damn. A lot he cares about
Oh, whoa, the language. Whoa.
what happens to my men.
Oliver's in trouble,
For once, I would like a red to not be demonetized.
and it could have been avoided. Oliver's a
You know what? I guess we blew past that with the intro of this, so whatever.
good manager, but we all goof once in a while. He was thrown off balance by Frank's question. He protected himself instead of thinking about the company and Frank.
I do like how we're being taught to sacrifice yourself for the company. Like, don't say, oh, it's not me, it's the company people. Like, even already we're being trained to have our allegiance align mostly with the company.
He knew about the order and the reasons for it, but he passed the buck to top management, thinking it would keep relations friendly with Frank. But as we heard, he was wrong. Frank would rather have had the real story.
That you spoke of.
They've been trading shifts for years now. Why the change?
Frank, I know you don't like the decision, and I didn't either. I fought it, and I lost. But we're gonna...
Yeah, I mean, that's way better to say, but I mean, I feel like in order to say that, that needs to be true also.
Gonna have to live with it, that's all. Actually, the company's got a point. The men have been taking advantage of the situation, so management had to crack down.
Well, I still don't like it. But at least you tried. Now, it's the men's own fault, I guess. If they hadn't run it into the ground, they'd have been all right.
If you hadn't run it into the ground, they'd be all right. Yeah, you could say that again. Maybe that's the problem. Yeah, maybe don't run it into the ground then. And maybe you won't have to change your ways.
That was better. Frank didn't get what he wanted, but at least he could depend on Oliver to represent the men. Competence.
You know, that's funny because I feel like that is just such a lie that bosses tell their workers now. Like, yeah, I really tried my hardest, but they wouldn't let it, you know, like, I don't know. I wouldn't trust that any more than what else he said, you know.
And dependability. Another factor in credibility is drive. Drive is intangible. It's hard to point to it, to demonstrate it. However, we all know it when we see it. It's the energy to see things through, to get a job done, even when we're dead tired.
You know, that's me watching this video right now. We're 20 minutes in and not a lot of interesting stuff has happened, but I have the drive to finish it. We got 3 minutes left. We're going to do it.
It's hard to talk about drive, but it's easy to see in a great leader. Churchill had it. The manager has it when he...
Wow. Yeah, I wonder if there was another world leader that they considered saying had drive that they just left out. You can almost hear them leave out who the other world leader who had drive. There's a whole pause and everything. Let's listen to that again.
It's hard to talk about drive, but it's easy to see in a great leader. Churchill had it. The manager has it when...
Churchill had it. The manager had it. Like, who else was supposed to be mentioned? It's almost inarguable that Hitler had drive. It's wrong for me to even be thinking about Hitler, but they brought him up, so it's their fault, not mine. Hitler did have drive, you know, undeniable.
When he demonstrates a willingness and an ability to follow through until...
But I wonder if they, like, realized that. Like, oh, we can't say that Hitler has drive. I mean, I guess this whole thing is saying that Hitler was a good leader. I don't know. It's just like, why would you use him as your first example of a communicating management's point of view? It's so weird that that was like the first thing that we saw. It's still on my mind.
We've discussed two of the most important factors in accomplishing change. The first is the ability to empathize.
I said that earlier, right? Like you really just need to be able to put yourself in other people's shoes.
Empathy is the talent of looking at the world
I said sympathize, but yeah, same thing.
from the other man's point of view, of anticipating his reactions and taking them into account. It's of crucial value in accomplishing change. The second factor is your own credibility. Your ability to...
Wait, hang on. So credibility is here again. Was it credibility or dependability? Oh no, but that was for establishing credibility. Okay, so dependability is an aspect of credibility. And then we have empathy, which is just completely different. What's all the rest of the space on screen? Are there going to be more words?
behave in ways which convince those around you that you have competence, dependability...
Oh yeah, here we go. So we get the 3 subsections of credibility along with empathy.
and drive.
This is just a funny graphic. I don't know. It's just words on a screen, you know?
Up to now, we've been talking about communication to persuade people to accept change.
Dude, shout out to when people used to put plates on the wall for decoration. What a funny thing, too. I feel like people don't do that anymore either.
Which, by choice or by necessity, has already been decided. Sometimes this is as far as we, as managers, can go. But research has shown that if subordinates are given advance notice of the proposed change and are encouraged to express their own opinions, ideas, and suggestions, the eventual change will be more readily accepted. In other words, to the extent your
I think I'm going to make this the thumbnail.
That's
just so that nobody is fooled like I did into thinking this was going to be more interesting than it really was. I was pretty much right when I said it was just a bunch of guys in an office learning how to be office men.
subordinates can participate in working out the change, they'll be more willing to go along with it. This does not mean that you simply turn important problems over to your subordinates and let them decide by majority vote. In most organizations, a manager makes the final decisions. He always takes the responsibility for them. But by letting your subordinates participate in discussing the problem before you make the final decision, they have a chance to offer suggestions which might result in a better decision. At any rate, from the communication point of view...
I guess that's a good lesson. It's just like, yeah, include your employees and sometimes they will improve your ideas for you, you know?
From the communication point of view, their participation in the decision will show that you empathize with subordinates and it improves your credibility.
I just love how the implication here is that you need to make an effort in order to empathize with your employees. Like you're not already like becoming friends or empathizing with them. Like before watching this, somebody was just never empathizing with their employees. And then they watched this and were like, oh, like I have to treat them like humans. Like, oh, just like me. Oh, okay.
Before we end, let's be sure we understand what we mean by empathy and credibility. Empathy is not just a set of techniques.
See, only like a businessman would ever even think that empathy is just a series of techniques. What a funny way to put it.
It requires real concern with what is the self-interest of the other man.
Yeah, see, that is a very good statement. It is real concern with the self-interests of the other person. That's a good definition.
You don't play games with people. You work to look at the world from their point of view. If you don't, if you simply treat people as toy soldiers, they'll know it. And communication will backfire.
Well, you know, that really is pertinent.
Your credibility is destroyed the moment improper motives are revealed. Effective communication involves skill.
Oh, all right, guys, it just ended right there. We don't get the credits. It just cut off. I wonder, I might try and find the other vision, but that seemed like it was about to end. So let's just consider that the end. Sorry we didn't get all the way through, but I think we got 99% of the way there. So what were my thoughts on this? Honestly, This wasn't that bad. This was actually had some good information in it. Obviously, it's a good idea to like sympathize with your employees and get to know them. It's so funny that this even had to be made, really. Like that's the comedy of this whole program, is that somebody needed to tell a manager to just think about it from somebody else's perspective, you know? Again, I don't know why we needed to start off in Nazi Germany for this lesson. I don't know if Hitler really played into it at all. But interesting program overall, I'd say. I guess the most interesting part about this, for me at least, is that I sort of am a manager now for this channel. I have to manage an editor, so this is actually very important lessons. I hope, or I wonder what Evan thinks about all this. I wonder if he thinks that I have been a good manager or not. You know, like I actually do have to start thinking about how I manage my subordinates, I guess. It feels wrong to even call them that, but I guess that's what it is, right? That apparently, according to this. But I think this is good. This is actually a good lesson in business for me, you know? It's so funny thinking that there were businessmen who watched like this entire series, right? The Berlo Effective Communication series. Like somebody must have watched like all 100 of these and must have been like a super boss or like not even that great of a boss. I don't know if these make a good boss or make a worse boss, but I think the information we learned today was actually pretty good. I think this is good. You know, I think I actually became a better boss through watching this. And now all I have to do is demonstrate my competence, my credibility, or no, my dependability, and my drive. That's what I have to demonstrate to my editor to keep them satisfied. So competence, dependability, and drive. I think that's actually something that we do have. So this is good. This is a promising start. Yeah, honestly, if you watched this, you would be better off for it, though also at the same time, you could probably also be doing everything this tells you to do without even thinking about it. You know, like if you're just a kind, caring human, you probably are already doing everything they told you to do in this. Like it's only if you're a cold, hard businessman do you need to be taught to think about other people's feelings, you know? So if you feel like you became a better manager by watching this, then please consider donating to the Internet Archive. That's where I get all of these old programs from. They really need the money, so please donate. If you enjoyed this, please donate to the Internet Archive. That's all I have to say, and until next time.